Hello everyone. Today I am joined with Georgie and Kapil, PGDM students at Great Lakes Gurgaon. And not just that, they are also the top scorers of one of the top scorers of CAT exam. And in today's video, we'll try to understand what their strategy for the CAT exam was. We'll also dive deep into section-wise, how did they score so much, and what was their strategy section-wise, and how could you improve on particular sections if you are struggling on. And with only less than 30 days to the CAT exam, what is that one thing that you can still do to score decent marks in the CAT exam? I would start with you, Georgie, first. How did you go about your strategy for the CAT exam leading up to, let's say in the final staging leading up to CAT?
All right. So for me, the thing was after my undergrad is when I properly sat for preparation for CAT. So I had around 3 months to prepare for CAT, and I joined an institute. So joining there was proper because I was doing a little bit of freelancing work at the same time. But since I was there, my whole day was structured. So I was mostly going and studying. We had classes in the morning until around noon. And then I had my free time. So in the evening as well. So the things I was focusing on was doing past papers as well as mock tests. So one good thing about the institution I was at was they were providing me good mock papers. And the mock papers were extremely difficult. So every time I was writing the mocks, I would score very less marks. But the good thing is after the mock, we sat together. There were a few people. So we all sat together and we figured out how to do the questions, who got the correct answer, things of that sort. So these kind of things helped me a lot. And towards the end, it was just revision and just going through the past papers that were there for CAT and the other exams as well.
Okay, so you prepared all of it in 3 months?
In around 3 months, yeah. I had to prepare in around 3 months. I couldn't afford.
Nice. And what about you, Kapil?
The same thing happened with me. Like the main concept that I had in mind was to keep my concepts clear. I should be thorough with the fundamentals. If I'm thorough with the fundamentals, I can go through it easily. So the last 3-4 months, the main thing that I focused on was practice and more practice. That's it.
Okay. And what was your study plan in the last few weeks? Did you focus more on your stronger areas or did you try to improve your weaker areas?
No. See, one thing that I would like to suggest is focus always on your stronger areas. In the last few days, don't even touch the areas that you're weaker in because that will add more mental pressure and this will backfire for some people. So that is something that I'm against.
And do you have a different opinion on that?
Well, actually, the same opinion as well. Because in the last few days, if you put too much pressure on yourself, you wouldn't be able to complete the topics you're good at. So for me personally, I was pretty good at VARC and at Quants. But DILR was very difficult for me to complete. But I focused on DILR in the beginning. So leading up to the final month, I was focusing priority on DILR because I was getting continuously low marks in DILR. I knew that VRC would go well because I had experience in that. And quants also, so I was trying to manage the focus things. Towards the last few weeks and especially the last few days, I was focusing on my strong suit. So that was what helped me prepare well, but not leaving the other thing out. So maybe focusing a little more to score higher and the other thing.
Nice. And since we have less than 30 days to go for CAT 2024, what would you suggest someone who, let's say, haven't touched it yet or haven't much prepared for the CAT exam and they have, let's say, 4 weeks from now? How should they go about it? What should they focus more on? And how can they still manage time in a way that they get sufficient marks?
So yeah, first thing that I would suggest is cut off the distractions. Distractions take out most of your time. Completely focus on yourself and your mental peace. Secondly, prepare as much as you can. Make your stronger areas much more stronger that you can face any type of questions. Secondly, speed. Speed matters a lot. And third one that I would suggest is choose the right sets. The faster you choose the right set, the easier it becomes. You don't have to solve all the questions. You just have to choose the right sets and attempt the probably best questions that will fetch you good marks.
Okay.
And for me, it would be like, if you have 30 days and you're preparing now, I would tell you to start by doing a mock test and figuring where you are at baseline without any knowledge. So with that, you'll understand what you need to prepare on. And then look if you were naturally good at something. If in the 3 sections that you have, if you're good at VARC, if you're good at DILR or Quants, then if you're good at something, focus on that. Try to catch the other things up in the first 2 weeks. And towards the last week, I would tell you, same thing, cut out your distractions, but make sure you are doing more than just studying and locking yourself up in your room. So go out, go spend some time with your friends, with your family, maybe work out. Don't be too focused on your studies, but make sure that when you're studying, you properly study.
Okay, as Kapil rightly mentioned, there are a lot of distractions. So how did you manage your preparations along with distractions and commitments that you have? Let's say if you have a job or college or something like that, how would you manage time to like to balance with preparations and all these commitments?
That depends upon the nature of work that you're doing. So if I would be in such a situation, I would have chosen to prioritize my work as well as the preparation time. So I would have keep in a balance of, let's say, if I'm working around 6 p.m., then I'll have a small break, I'll rejuvenate myself, and post that I'll completely focus on my study. Let's say even if I study for an hour or two, I'll be completely focused on that. I would not be so fragile that I'll get distracted easily. So my focus shall be completely there because I have lots to catch up.
And what do you think?
And so for me, it was I had properly scheduled that 3 months to prepare for CAT, but I was having a few freelancing works in between as well. So I was doing sales and marketing for a company, and I was also helping my dad with his business as well. So the thing was, during the day, my whole classes was scheduled, and I had like an hour or two for my mock exams as well. Besides that, after that, I had work enough and time enough to finish all that. I had time to go to the gym as well, meet my friends also. But then during the night also, I would do a little bit of revision. Almost every week, we had our exams, like mock exams, and we had like few days to look after the questions we're doing also. So scheduling your day is very important. I wouldn't say that you can just like go with the flow. You'll have to schedule your day. It is a bit of a difficulty in the beginning, but eventually you'll get the hang of it. And the better scheduled you are, the more things you have in line, the easier it will be for you. Because CAT is a very structured exam. Right. So once you go along that flow, then it'll be much easier for you.
Okay. What I would do personally is, if I'm in a job or something and I want to prepare for CAT or any other exam, I would probably leave my job for a particular time frame, and I'll just give myself a deadline that within this time frame I have to prepare for that CAT, and I have to crack that. Because balancing, no matter how hard you try with a job, with a college, I don't know, it might be a little easier, but with a job it becomes really difficult to go back home and study, especially if you're living away from your hometown. So things get really difficult.
So the same thing, the institute where I was at, there were a lot of people who like properly decided that they want to do CAT. So they left their jobs and they came this whole structured thing. So they were also around 6 to 7 months they were in class. So this whole thing, they planned to leave their job and come and do this. Because the same thing they were telling me as well, that if you're planning to take two things at the same time, both of them won't go good. So if you focus entirely and prioritize one thing, then you'll have a better chance.
Okay. And since you scored really well in VARC, how was your preparation strategies, like specifically for VARC, or what would you do differently that you think others might not have done to score that much?
My preparation for VARC, generally, I would say it was before CAT also. So I'm a very avid reader. I read a lot. So reading specifically, since I was reading a lot, my vocabulary was also pretty decent. And that helped me a lot with VARC as well. So reading a lot of passages, it doesn't necessarily have to be reading, it just has to be consuming content. So it could be YouTube, it could be movies, documentaries, whatever it is. Just make sure that once you have that content, make sure you use it in everyday life. So the exam is structured in such a way that it's very application oriented. So the VARC questions as well, the passages that they get is very high level of English, but it's English that you could see that could happen in academic conversations or in your reports, things of that sort, especially case studies as well. So when you have that, just try to include that in your daily life, in conversation, or whether you're writing a paper, giving a speech, anything of that sort, then maybe try to include that. So if you include what you've learned over your past, then it'll be easier for you to keep that in your mind, and it'll come naturally to you.
Now we have 30 days to CAT. How do we, let's say if I'm asking about VARC, right? Now anyone who is finding VARC as their weaker area, how would they prepare for that? And what is that one thing that you would advise that this is something that you should do to make it your stronger area, or just if it is very difficult, then leave it at all?
One of the hacks that I got from a senior of mine was read the editorial of the Hindu. So generally the passages that come for CAT, they're taken from either websites, news articles, or of that sort. So if you read the Hindu or the Times, any newspaper, if you read the editorial, you'll get access and exposure to a lot of complicated sentences, but written in very sophisticated ways. So you can comprehend them very easily, as well as take advantage of how to answer them as well. Another hack would be to go through the past papers and do as many mocks as you can. So when you know what kind of questions are coming, you can basically foresee how to answer the questions as well. So you can basically figure out a mind map of how to answer these questions.
Okay. And DILR was your stronger area, right? Yes. Data interpretation is still easy. You can prepare for that. But logical reasoning is something, it is still logical reasoning, right? Yes. So how does one prepare for that?
For me, it was not very difficult because I had some things in place that helped me a lot. Firstly, I was good at Sudoku. So these small little games that I play in my phone, it really helped me a lot because my thinking capability increased a lot. I could have a wider range of areas where I could analyze and I could sense the things. So these things helped me a lot. And secondly, data interpretation is also quite easy. If you have a good arithmetic background, data interpretation shall not be a difficult area for you. So the thing again comes here is you have to be fundamentally strong. You have to start preparing at least few basic concepts that are quite repeatedly asked. Go through the past papers. You'll get a quite good knowledge about what topics are being covered in the past. So try to focus more on that area and try to build up your level to that game.
So if I could add to that, DLR was one of my weaker suits. So how I caught up to that is by doing the exact same thing he said, was doing these questions that were there in the past paper. So when you do more questions, you figure out basically, okay, so if you get a question about a round table, or if you get a question about dates and time, so you can figure out, okay, this is how you do that, this is how you do that. You can basically figure out in your head that these are how you do these things. And the positive to that is, the more questions you do, the easier it is for you to answer questions also. So there also the thing is, you can figure out these hacks by doing more and more problems. It sounds repetitive saying that you have to do more and more questions, but at the end of the day, that is the most easiest solution. That is the most straightforward solution as well.
Okay, and now come quants. So what advice would you give to someone, let's say 30 days before CAT, how can they improve on quant?
Right. So the thing for quants is, you know the syllabus for quants. So basically the CAT exams almost always follow a syllabus. So try to figure out in that syllabus what are the different type of topics that you personally can do, and get those fundamentals rock solid. Cement those fundamentals to the point where if someone wakes you up in the middle of sleep and asks you to do that question, you can do it. So that's the most important part, I'll tell you. So once you have those fundamentals figured out, you can translate that in the rest of the questions as well. So if you have, say, for example, I think there were 11 or 13 topics that were there. Yes. So out of that, if you have around 8 fundamentals left, you can probably do a very high amount of questions in quants. So if you have those fundamentals in those easy questions, so you have your arithmetic reasoning, you have your algebra. So these things are generally a little more easier. So if you focus on those topics, geometry as well. So if you focus on those topics and you know you're good at these topics, pay a little more attention to that. And if there's something that you completely can't understand, try to solve a few questions. But towards the end of those 30 days, when you're closing your exam, keep it out of your mind. Whatever you know, whatever you're comfortable with, focus, go full blast.
Okay, and were there any specific questions, specific type of question that you practiced more in the last month?
For me, geometry was particularly a favorite of mine. So I was doing a lot of geometry questions. And besides that, VARC I was focusing on a lot. And there were a specific type of question regarding the arrangement, data arrangement, these things in data interpretation and logical reasoning. Those questions also I was doing a lot of. And especially in quants, when it came to it, for me, the thing was, do as many questions as I could prior to the exam, do as many mocks as I could, do as many past papers as I could. And even we had these booklets with a lot of questions. I think there was 1,001 questions of some sort. So I tried to do as many as I can. So another thing you have to focus on while giving your CAT exam, especially when it comes to quant and DILR, is speed is key. You have to be fast. You have to see. When you see, you have to know the answer. You have to go. You can't waste time on one question and keep the other questions vague. So I'll suggest go through as many questions as you can and keep your speed as high priority.
All right. And how frequently did you guys take these mock exams?
For me, it was every 3 days.
Every 3 days?
Every 3 days I would be taking
a full-length mock exam.
I would take a full-length mock exam, and every week I would take a full-length mock exam and go through the whole. I take a full-length, very difficult level mock exam, and I would go through how to solve it, like where I made the mistakes. So if there were 66 questions, I'd probably get 6 questions correct in the very difficult one, and then I would figure out how to solve the other questions.
Let's say if I were to ask you about your, in the last month, first week and last week, let's say in your first week, how many questions you were attempting right? And in the last week, how many questions you were attempting right?
I remember my scores pretty decently. When I joined, I think for our first mock, I scored around 71 percentile or something of that sort.
In your first week?
In my first week, I went there. And the last mock that I gave, which was around almost the same as the CAT level, that mock I got around 98 percentile. So I went into the CAT exam high hopes, very well prepared as well.
Cool. And what about you, Kapil?
For me, it was always one thing that give mocks at the most, in the weekends only, because my weekdays were used for preparations. In the weekends, I focused on mocks.
So how frequently did you give mocks?
Weekly twice.
Okay.
And the level that I chose, difficulty level that I chose was moderate to high. Because I started with moderate, I kept on practicing, I got more exposure to the concepts. Post which going to the difficulty level, it gave me a more wider area of concepts where I could develop my skills on cons, because that was my weakest section.
Okay. And how did your scores improve over the time?
I had one formula: just be solid with the formulas. I used to read the formulas, I used to by heart the formulas day and day night. That helped me a lot because formulas were the beginning of all the questions. So if you know the formula, you at least get the start and you can figure your way out. So the formulas was something that I focused more.
Okay. Did you guys also practice last year papers?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I think I practiced the past 5 years papers or something. We had that given to us by our seniors and people who were there in the institute. So the way the papers were written were different from the way it was given the CAT that year. But still, attending those questions helped.
Okay. And how did these papers help you refine your strategy?
So basically everything, even including the mocks as well, one thing I made sure was I would keep it time bound. So I wanted to do as many questions as I can and as fast as I can. So I wanted to emulate the same situation I would be going through while doing the actual CAT exam. So my time-based exam, so I gave it at the proper time as well. So scheduling my time, which section to do first, what to do last. So those things were basically polished upon while doing these mocks. And especially about the papers and the past papers, so basically how I could grade them. So what level of difficulty they were, what kind of questions I could do, how good I could do the questions, and how fast I could complete the whole paper.
And is one really able to understand the question trends by attempting the last year papers? And are there any questions that are repetitive over the period of year?
If you see the past 5-year paper, particularly in quants, there are several questions that are either repetitive in nature, or at least the crux or the base is similar. So if you practice a lot of question papers, you get to know the concepts that can be approached by yourself. You can practice more on those situations and you can solidify your base.
Yeah, the same thing I would agree with. If you look at it, you wouldn't be able to see a trend in difficulty because the year prior to the CAT I gave, the level of the CAT was relatively easier as compared to it. And the year I gave was very hard, very difficult compared to the year before. So people's scores were also particularly lower. So you can't judge the difficulty level, but you can judge the type of questions that come. So especially in quants and especially in VARC, the type of passages that come and the type of questions they ask as well. Generally, the pattern of questions remain the same. And especially in quants, almost the entire question would be the same. A few changes in numbers, the entire topic would be the same.
Okay. One thing where most aspirants, struggle is managing stress, especially when you have left a job to appear for CAT, or it increases when your mocks are not going as planned. So how does one manage stress in such situations?
Sure. So my thing was I had a lot of stress when my mock scores weren't going as good. I remember I had a good streak going, and then one of the mocks I gave, which was a particularly difficult one, my scores went down. And that time I had these problems. So what I would suggest is talk to people, don't keep it within yourself, talk to your family, talk to your friends, figure out where you went wrong, what could be the reasons where you went wrong, was your preparation not as good, what are the formulas that you forgot, did you get stuck on any question, was time the problem? So one thing I would say is to be critical about yourself, but be critical in such a way that it's constructive to yourself. So don't take everything to heart, and this is an important skill even when you come to an MBA, because your skills will be questioned. You will be put on stand. You will be put on trial, and then a lot of self-development has to happen. So stress, I would say, you will have it. Of course, you'll have it in your life, but I'll say try to talk to it. Try to be constructive about the criticisms that you have. Figure it out yourself. And don't keep it inside a bubble. Talk to people, you'll figure it out. That's how it went for me. So my thing was I talked to people who scored well in the exam. I checked how my scores in that particular exam went down. And I basically figured out, okay, if I do this, I can get a little more score next time. So I try to revise my strategy for the next time. So it does happen, but I'll do your best to make sure.
So stress is inevitable, but it has to be short term.
Yes.
You don't have to stuck by it.
To add on to Georgie, I spent most of the time with my friends and family whenever I was in such a situation. And secondly, I used to play sports. Badminton was my go-to whenever I felt that pressure or somewhere that I did not feel good about my marks, I used to play badminton. So one thing that I would suggest is enjoy your preparation as well as play some sport to avoid the stress.
No, makes
Sports
sense, makes sense.
takes out
Anything
the stress
physical
from
that
your
you're
life.
doing, be it gymming, be it playing sports,
Yes.
that definitely helps.
I remember because while my preparation, I was staying by myself. So I was in a separate, I was staying away from home. And the place I was staying, I had a few friends there, but I was living alone. So I used to have my classes. So before the classes, I would go running. And after classes, I would go to the gym. So these were completely inevitable. I couldn't change it whatsoever. So whatever my timings be, this I would do continuous.
Yeah, those 45 minutes you're just indulged in that, and that's really helpful.
So that really did help me a lot. So it helped me calm myself down as well. And I used to have good interactions with people. I would go in with clubs. A few people would come with me. And even when I went to the gym as well, we used to have good interactions. So calm me down.
And while you were actually appearing for the exam, how did you manage time? How did you ensure that you are not stuck on difficult questions?
So for me, the thing was, if you can't figure out the first half of the question in, say, 10 seconds, skip to the next one. So for me, it was very clear. If you can't hit it, cut it loose. So that's how I was going with everything. VARC, I knew was my strong suit, so I could finish it very fast. And even in my mocks, I knew that I could finish it fast. So VARC, I finished as fast as possible. Following VARC, I knew quants was good for me, and I knew the type of questions I was good at. So those questions I found them one after the other, finished them as soon as possible. And the questions I couldn't do, I just glanced through them, see if I could do anything. I think I could solve one or two questions among those as well. Then I moved to the DILR session. And there, the type of questions that I knew that I could solve, I tried to solve them. And once I did that, I think I had around 5-6 minutes left before I could go through the entire thing. And in that 5-6 minutes, I think I went back and solved another quant question as well. So I was going back in this. So the stress problem also, I had my exam scheduled first thing in the morning because I knew I'd be good. I'm always good when it's first thing in the morning. I didn't want to take it out later also. So it was first in the morning. And when there, prepared, I was in my car listening to my music. I had my friends. Everybody told me, good luck. I'm like, okay, let's go. Time to shine. Went there, made sure I had a clear mind. I didn't have anything. I didn't have any of that. I had my coffee. I had music, went in, hope for the best, did my best and came out.
Cool. And what about you?
Similarly, I also made sure that I do not revise anything in the morning. Go with a clear mindset. Whatever has to happen shall happen. I've given my best in the past. Now this is the time where I should be tested upon. Secondly, that I would like to say is, go with a clear mindset. Post that, stay calm during the process. You don't have to overthink. You don't have to take any pressure. And while looking at the question paper first, what I did was I scanned the whole question paper. I got a clear picture about from where should I start. After reading the paper, I got to know that VRC was comparatively easy. So I started with the VRC, post which I went with DILR, and then I attempted the quants. Even while attempting, I filtered the questions that were easily approachable. So that saved a lot of time for me for doing quants, which was not my forte section. So this is something that helped me. I tried to gain more pace in VARC and DILR, and I gave quite reasonable time in quants.
Cool. And were there any specific routines or activities that you followed the night before or the morning of the exam to keep yourself calm?
Listen to the music.
Okay.
Just listen to music, play badminton. It really helped me burst all my stress, and it gave me a peaceful sleep.
Because I interacted with a lot of MBA aspirants, and what they mentioned was they couldn't sleep the night before the exam. So what is your mantra for that?
For me, it was the night before, that day after I had went through my revision. I'm like, okay, this is the time. So I was giving my exam in a different location. So I was staying with a friend of mine. So we both went to the gym together and we gave it as hard as we can. So I had a very good workout session, came back, had my food. 10 o'clock I was in bed, 11 o'clock I was out. Had a very good sleep, woke up in the morning, well rested, took a shower, music all the way till the exam center. And I was vibing also. I made sure, I knew that I would get stressed. So I generally do tend to get stressed before these kind of situations. So I also know what to do prior to helping myself. So I know a good night's sleep will help. I know having a good tummy full of good breakfast will help. I know coffee helps me. And good music also always helps. So I was calm, I was in my equilibrium, and then I went and gave the exam. It was good for me.
All right. And now as it is only less than 4 weeks left to CAT, is there any section particularly out of the 3 sections that one should definitely prepare for if they haven't, prepared anything so far? anything that you think in general is relatively easier than the other two sections?
I think so. Verbal ability is something that everybody can approach. It does not require lots of mental thing. You just have to approach it in a decent way. If you are able to figure out the structure, you can easily score well in VARC. And then you have to give a bit of time to RC as well. Read the passages that are easily understandable. If you understand the passage as soon as possible, you can attempt the questions there also. It will add the brownie points to you.
Okay. In the last month, or I would say in the last couple of months, if anyone is not prepared, so they would probably jump directly on the mock papers and previous year papers without getting their basics clear. Is it the right way if you have very shorter time frame?
Yeah, whatever time frame you have, I believe it's very good that you're doing mock tests, but you need to have your fundamentals clear. I mean, there is a very small bunch of people who can brute force their way into doing mocks and just clear the exam. But generally, it's much better practice if you take your time, go through your fundamentals, at least an hour a day or 2 hours a day if you go through your fundamentals, and then move forward into doing your mock papers. That would do you much better. For me personally, I think that would do you much better.
And my last question would be, in such a short time frame, how can they build speed? I'll give you an example. So if you ask me to do anything very quickly, very rapidly, I would definitely make mistakes. So let's say if I were to appear for a quant exam, and if I'm doing it very quickly, I'm very sure that I'll make mistakes. But if that same question is given to me and enough time is given to me, I'll definitely do it correctly. So if I have to take exam, like let's say in November this month only, right? So how should I go about with improving my speed?
So I'll start. For speed, you have to practice a lot. Practice is the only way out for accuracy. So I would suggest practice as much as possible. Get your fundamentals strong using the formulas and other stuffs. You'll try to figure out a pace where you are comfortable with. Once you are comfortable, you'll be very confident while approaching the paper. So that is something that will work.
So for me also, the same thing is practice is always what matters. But besides that, for improving your speed, make sure your worksheet that you have, where you're writing down, you figure out how to do questions, make it as clean as possible. Yeah. So when you don't make any mistakes there, and when you see how you're doing the problem, so you'll have a better idea of how to solve the problem. And another thing you have to keep in mind is this question paper was prepared in such a manner that all the questions can be solved within the stipulated time, well within the stipulated time actually. So all these questions can be solved. It's just the way you approach these questions. So the more questions you do and the more type of questions you're exposed to, the easier it becomes for you to do these type of questions. So practice helps, writing it down clearly helps, and having a good train of thought helps. If you do a question and you get stuck in the between, you have to learn to cut your loss and move to the next question. No matter if it's a topic that you revise so much upon, you have to cut your losses because you are in a situation where there is a lot of high pressure and you have to move forward to the next question. Who knows, maybe 2 questions after, it's a very easy question that you could solve. So that's how you have to go through it. To just cut your losses, go to the next one, try to do it as clean as possible, and make sure you don't take too much stress in the exam. After the exam, before the exam, after the exam, take as much stress as you want because you couldn't finish the question. But in the exam, be as calm as possible, cut your losses, move on to the next question, and have a clear train of thought.
Also, did you guys prepare for anything? Let's say it's not a part of CAT, but did you also prepare for risk-taking, decision-making, things like that?
Well, in my undergrad, we had this innovation and entrepreneurship development cell. So we used to have workstations, classes, and general programs that used to be with it. So decision-making, stress-taking, this was all part of the journey. So that was one of the reasons, actually one of the contributing factors for me choosing an MBA. I was an engineer by my undergrad, and I switched to MBA or business in my postgrad. So this was one of the contributing factors that helped me come into this field as well.
All right. Lastly, is there any advice that you guys would want to give to MBA aspirants who will be giving exam this month?
Practice hard. Practice as much as you can. That will improve your speed. That will improve your accuracy. That is all matters.
And keep the formulas in mind. A very funny story that I actually thought of when you was talking about formulas was, so I was preparing, there were a few friends also I made along the way when we were preparing for CAT. And one of the friends who was living, so we were at his house. All his walls were full of formulas. So seeing that, I'm like, oh, that's a pretty good idea. So I came back to my room. My entire wall is also full of formulas. I remember the week before CAT, I couldn't figure out this one question, the equation for a question. So I had it as my wallpaper. So whenever I would look at my phone, I had a formula sheet on my phone as my wallpaper. So, good, this I can see. So it just ingrained in my mind. So you could use any of this. And if you have only 30 days left for CAT, prepare what you have strong in the few days, do your mocks, try to go through your past papers, and make sure you're not stressed the day of the exam. Have a good night's sleep, eat a belly full of good food, and during the exam, cut your losses. If you don't know a question, move to the next one, and make sure you do well.
Okay, that's a lot of advices. Cool. I think it was nice chatting with you guys. Lovely conversation. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.